Okay, here's one on blended families. As a newly married blended family, we've been focusing all of our time and attention on making a great step family. How do you balance spending time with the kids and having a good marriage? We didn't get the time alone at the beginning like many couples do.
My dad was one of 10 children. My dad's mother married and had 2 children. Her husband died. My dad's father got married, had 2 children. His wife died. They got married and had 6 children, and my dad was the oldest of the 6. So my dad grew up in a blended family, and I saw the dynamic of that blended family. In most families, there's a couple, then children. But in a blended family, there's children and a couple. And what they're saying here is we didn't get a lot of that alone time that most people have because our children came into the marriage. Here's what you have to realize. A family builds around a marriage, and a marriage is first. A marriage has to be a priority. And sometimes there's a conflict in a blended family because it's like, well, I've known you for a year, I've known them all their lives. And you're maybe my wife or my husband, these are my blood relatives the rest of my life. And there's this kind of a priority conflict that takes place. Your children cannot succeed in marriage unless they see you doing it. In other words, they have a much greater likelihood of success in succeeding in marriage. Marriage has to be number one. It has to be number one. Children can't take the place of a marriage. And strong families build around strong marriages. And so you have to prioritize your relationship and teach your children to respect your marriage. Your children deserve a lot of good quality and quantity time. But on your list of priorities, it's God, marriage, children, in that order for several reasons. Again, that's the way God created it. For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife. Marriage, it has to be more important than your blood kin. In other words, you leave your mother and father for the sake of marriage. So number one, marriage only works if it's first. It can't be compromised even with the blended family situation. The other thing is this, children are a temporary assignment. Children come and children go, hopefully, is that, they're wonderful while they're there, but I remember when our children were born, I remember when I gave them both away in marriage. I did both of their wedding ceremonies. I remember when they left. And when they left our home, we still have a close relationship. They didn't want us chasing them around the rest of their lives. And so Karen and I were married, and they came into our lives and they left. Well, in a blended family, they're there, and then you get married, but they're going to leave one day. And so for the sake of the integrity of your relationship, you have to work on your marriage and make it a priority and train your children to respect your marriage. That they don't have carte blanche, invitation into your bedroom or into your life or into your conversations anytime they want to, and that you have time alone. Have a date night. Every single week have a date night. Get babysitters for the kids, and you develop a time alone, a discipline of being alone with each other. Absolutely critical with blended families.
I think that being in a blended family has to be one of the hardest situations in a marriage. I think of the friends I know that are having to share children with ex-spouses, and sometimes the ex-spouses are nice and sometimes they're not. And, sometimes the ex-spouse is a Christian and sometimes they're not. And so I think you have to have a lot of grace, a lot of people surrounding you with prayer and support and encouragement, because I just think being in that situation has got to be really hard. And so for all of you blended families, I'm so grateful that you're hanging in there, because it's hard. It's hard. How many people out here are blended families? I'm just curious.
A lot of them.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
And so you're identifying. I just know from my friends, it's got to be really, really hard. So I'm very proud of y'all, and so thanks for hanging in there.
And there are some phenomenal blended families. Mm-hmm. Some of the most terrific families we have ever seen are blended family relationships. And so it is worth it. There are special challenges, but it is worth it. We have another question, I think.
Yes. How do you treat stepchildren and biological children equally? We want to live in harmony as much as possible, and I'm naturally protective of my kids because they've been through so much. But I want them to respect my new spouse as well. In every family, my brother Randy and I know that my parents love Mike best. And, I tell people I have 2 older brothers, Damien and Lucifer. And he's Lucifer. But, no, I love my brothers. But, the worst thing in the world, in just an intact nuclear family, is when there's preference going on. It's much worse in a blended family. And emotions run high. Like I said, I saw my dad's family and the dynamic of that family. I saw conversations going on
as my grandmother got older, and they were asking her, who do you want to be buried next to? You know, our mother, or, you know, this, or your husband over here. And they were playing my grandmother to find out, you know, all these kind of things like that. And she was torn in between. And so just the issue of equity. Who do you love most? Who are you going to prefer most? And here's the issue. In a blended family, you have to be hypersensitive to the issue of fairness and equity. And here's how it happens. Every decision you make together. And that's what ensures equity. And by the way, there are laws of marriage. The first law is the law of priority. For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother. The second law is the law of pursuit, and shall cleave unto his wife. The word cleaves means energy. Marriage is work. It only works when you work at it. So marriage is work. The third law is the law of possession. They two shall become one. And the law of possession means everything I have belongs to you now. You cannot become one if it's my bank account, my car, my time, and my children. When you get married, you have to surrender ownership of your children to your marriage, or they'll ruin the marriage. In other words, let's just say that a couple gets married and she has one and he has two children. They get married. Now they have three, and these are our children. These aren't your children and my children. These are our children together. I may not be the biological parent, but I can love that child as much as anybody with the love of God. I can make a decision that I'll do what's right by that child. And there has to be an agreement that we are taking responsibility of all these children, and every decision we make, we're going to make together. I'm not going to slide money over here that you don't know about to my biological children. I'm not going to, shun your, child over here because of whatever reason. These are all of our children, and every decision we make related to these children, we're going to make together. And if we reach an impasse, we're going to go get help. Because there may come a time when we're so emotional that we realize we can't make a decision. Let me say this to you. Anywhere that there's hurricanes, there are signs in that city, there are emergency routes out of a city with hurricanes. And at times when a hurricane's striking is when they're most important. Everybody needs an emergency plan of what you're going to do if you can't solve a problem on your own. Karen and I, several times in our marriage as pastors, have had to go get help for our marriage. And it wasn't because we were in crisis. It's because we couldn't settle an issue. And one of the times that we had to go do this, we just couldn't settle. We weren't fighting. We weren't on the brink of divorce or anything like that. We just couldn't settle an issue. And we had something between, and we weren't objective. I was not objective. And we went and got help for it. And we sit down in front of this counselor. And we said, whatever you say to us, that's what we're going to do. And we went in and submitted the issue, and this counselor listened to us, and they turned and they said, Jimmy, you're wrong. You're of the devil. But they just looked at me and said, Jimmy, you're wrong. It's like, well, that means she's right. But I said, okay. And they said, this is what we think. Well, let me say this. We've done that several times. I'm not going to say it saved our marriage because we weren't going to divorce over the issue, but it saved our intimacy and goodwill, because there are times that you just have to do that. So here I'm saying, in blended families, the emotions can run very, very high. Do not let your emotions become the truth to you. They may be your truth, but they may not be the truth. And every family needs an emergency plan. I'm asking you this question. I'm asking you to consider this and answer this. Where would you go if you reached an impasse in your relationship? But pastor, church, most wonderful local church is the hope of the world, and your pastors and churches are really the first line that you need to go to. But where would you go? Do you know a counselor? Do you know someone that you trust? Because in every marriage, I believe in the life of every marriage there are going to be issues. But in blended families, those issues can be even more emotional. So if you can't make all your decisions together, don't let your children divide you and work you against each other. And if you can't solve a problem, go outside to get help.